The boardroom was silent when I made my announcement. 15 executives stared at me, but my mother's face showed the most shock. "What do you mean, you're resigning?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You're the chief executive officer of Morrison Industries. You can't just walk away." "Emma needs me," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The doctors say she has 6 months, maybe less. I'm not spending that time in board meetings." My mother stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "The company needs you more than your dying daughter. She has nurses, doctors, her father. What she doesn't need is you throwing away everything we built." I gathered my papers. "I've already submitted my resignation to the board. My decision is final." "Then you're dead to us," my mother said. She turned to my brother, David, who sat 3 seats down. "Pack up her office. Get her out by the end of the day." I looked around the table. My father had started Morrison Industries 40 years ago, building it from a small manufacturing company into a regional powerhouse. When he died 3 years ago, I took over as CEO. Under my leadership, we doubled our revenue and expanded into 3 new states. None of that mattered now. "I'll clear out my personal items," I said. "David can handle the transition documents." My mother's expression hardened. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. That child is dying whether you're there or not. At least you could have preserved your father's legacy." I left the boardroom without another word. Emma was 8 years old when the neuroblastoma diagnosis came. Stage 4, aggressive. The oncologist spoke in percentages and probabilities, but I heard only one thing. My daughter was running out of time. For 3 months, I tried to balance everything. Hospital visits during lunch breaks, board meetings via video call from the pediatric oncology floor, reviewing quarterly reports while Emma slept after chemotherapy. My mother called it having it all. I called it drowning. The day Emma asked why I was always on my phone during her treatments was the day I knew I had to choose. My brother moved into the CEO position within a week. My mother took over as board chair. Neither of them called to check on Emma or me. My younger sister, Patricia, sent a brief text. "Mom says we're not supposed to contact you anymore. I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I was too busy learning how to manage Emma's pain medications, coordinate with hospice, and make every remaining day count. We moved into a smaller apartment near the hospital. I sold my luxury car and bought a practical set-in. I cashed out my stock options and put the money into accessible accounts. The family stopped including me in company communications. My corporate email was deactivated. My mother had my name removed from the company website. It didn't matter. Emma and I spent her good days at the park. On bad days, I read to her for hours. She loved stories about girls who went on adventures, girls who were brave even when they were scared. "Am I brave, Mom?" she asked one afternoon, her voice weak. "The bravest person I know," I told her. Emma died on a Tuesday morning in February, holding my hand. The hospice nurse said it was peaceful. I said it was the worst moment of my life. My family didn't attend the funeral. My mother sent flowers with a card that read, "Condolences on your loss. This doesn't change what you did to the company." After Emma died, I couldn't go back to the corporate world. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I discovered something during those months of caregiving. I was good at navigating the medical system. I understood insurance denials, treatment protocols, and clinical trials. Other families in the pediatric ward had asked for my help, and I gave it freely. 6 months after Emma's death, I started Peterson Medical Advocacy, just me, working from home, helping families with seriously ill children navigate the healthcare maze. I charged some clients and worked pro bono for others. The work was meaningful in a way the boardroom had never been. The business grew faster than I expected. I hired 2 assistants, then 4. We worked with hospitals across 3 states. I developed relationships with insurance companies, pharmaceutical reps, and patient assistance programs. Within a year, I had 12 employees and a waiting list of clients. I bought a house in a quiet neighborhood with the money I'd saved from my CEO stock options. Nothing extravagant, but it was mine. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, a mortgage I could afford. I put Emma's photos everywhere and created a small memorial garden with her favorite flowers. I didn't think about Morrison Industries much. Occasionally, I'd see news articles about the company, market share declining, contract disputes, executive turnover. I felt a distant sadness, but it wasn't my problem anymore. 2 years after Emma's funeral, someone knocked on my door on a Saturday morning. I opened it to find my mother standing on the porch. She'd aged dramatically. Her expensive suit hung loose on a thinner frame. Her hair, always perfectly styled, looked dull and unwashed. "Hello, Patricia," my mother said. "It's been 2 years," I said. "What do you want?" She held up an envelope. "I've been evicted. The bank foreclosed on my condo last month. I've been staying with David, but she paused. "He can't help anymore either." I didn't invite her inside. "Why are you here?" "I need a place to stay, just temporarily, until I get back on my feet." She glanced past me into the house. "You seem to have space. You told me I was dead to you." I was angry. "You abandoned the company when we needed you most." "I was with my dying daughter." My mother's jaw tightened. "The company your father built is gone, Patricia. Bankrupt. David ran it into the ground. He made reckless expansion decisions and took on too much debt. Everything is gone." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. My father had loved that company. "I have nowhere else to go," my mother said, her voice cracking slightly. "Your sister can barely support herself. David is being investigated for fraud. I'm asking for help." Before I could respond, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. "Excuse me, I need to take this." I stepped back but left the door open. My mother could hear the conversation. "Hi, Jennifer," I said. "Yes, the Henderson case settled. The insurance company agreed to cover the full experimental treatment, $300,000. I paused, listening. "Tell Mrs. Henderson that Dr. Yamamoto's office has the approval. They can start next week." I hung up and looked at my mother. Her expression had shifted to confusion. "You work in insurance?" she asked. "I run a medical advocacy firm. We help families navigate healthcare coverage for catastrophic illnesses." "How many employees?" 15 now. We're expanding into 2 more states next quarter." My mother stared at me. "You run a company?" "A small one, yes." "But you quit Morrison. You gave up your career." "I gave up one career. I built another." A car pulled into my driveway. A woman in professional attire stepped out, carrying a clipboard. "Ms. Peterson? I'm Amanda Torres from Riverside Realty. I have the paperwork for the investment property you inquired about." She smiled. "The 4-unit apartment building on Oak Street. The owner accepted your offer." "That's wonderful," I said. "I'll review the documents this afternoon." Amanda nodded and handed me the folder. "Congratulations on your second rental property. You're building quite a portfolio." After Amanda left, I turned back to my mother. Her face had gone pale. "You own rental properties?" she whispered. 2 apartment buildings, 4 units each. It's a good investment strategy, and I can manage them alongside the advocacy work." My phone buzzed with a text from my accountant. "Q4 revenue looks strong. Your business cleared $780,000 this year. Well done." My mother read the notification on my screen before I could close it. "You made nearly $800,000. It was a good year," I said simply. "While Morrison was collapsing, you were building all this?" "While Emma was dying, I was holding her hand. After she died, I chose to build something meaningful. The business success was a byproduct." My mother sat down heavily on my porch step. "I thought you destroyed your life. I thought you'd be struggling, barely getting by. You thought I'd come crawling back." She didn't deny it. I sat beside her, keeping a small distance. "Why did the company fail?" "David didn't understand operations like you did. He was good at sales and relationships, but he couldn't manage the infrastructure. He expanded too fast, borrowed too much, made promises we couldn't keep." She rubbed her temples. "I watched it fall apart and couldn't stop it. I kept thinking if you'd just stayed, if you'd put the company first." "My daughter was dying." "I know that." Her voice was small. I knew it then too. We sat in silence for several minutes. A neighbor waved as they walked their dog. The morning sun warmed the porch. "Emma asked about you," I said finally, near the end. "She wanted to know why Grandma didn't visit." My mother's hands trembled. "What did you tell her?" "That you were busy, that you loved her but showed it differently." I looked at my mother directly. "I lied to my dying daughter to protect your reputation. Patricia, She died holding my hand, asking me to tell you she was sorry she took me away from work." My mother's face crumpled. "No, an 8-year-old child apologized for dying because she heard your voice on that speakerphone in the boardroom telling me the company needed me more." Tears streamed down my mother's face. "I didn't mean for her to hear that. I didn't mean. What you meant doesn't matter. What you said does. What you chose does." My phone rang again, my business partner this time. I answered. Patricia, the hospital administrator at County General wants to contract with us for their entire pediatric oncology patient advocacy program. It's a 2-year contract worth $500,000. I could hear the excitement in Tom's voice. This is huge for us. Schedule a meeting for Monday, I said. We'll review the terms. I hung up and stood. My mother remained on the porch step, looking up at me. You're succeeding, she said quietly, beyond what I ever imagined. Success isn't measured in revenue anymore, at least not for me. Then what is it measured in? I thought of Emma's last days, the way she'd smiled when I read her favorite stories, the peace on her face when she died, the families I'd helped since then, and the children who received treatment because we fought for their insurance coverage. Impact, I said. The difference you make when you choose correctly. My mother wiped her eyes. I chose incorrectly. Yes, you did. Can you forgive me? I considered the question honestly. I don't know. Maybe someday, but not today. Will you help me with the housing situation? I looked at the woman who'd chosen a company over her granddaughter. Would disown me for choosing love over profit. I thought about Emma, who taught me more about courage in 8 years than I'd learned in my entire corporate career. I own a studio apartment in one of my buildings, I said. It's small, 400 square feet. The previous tenant moved out last month. Hope flickered across my mother's face. The rent is $800 a month, utilities not included. You'll need to pass a background check and provide first and last month's rent, plus a security deposit. Same terms I offer anyone. You're going to charge me rent? Would you prefer I treat you differently than any other tenant? She was quiet for a moment. No, that's fair. There's one more condition, I said. Once a month, you'll volunteer at my office. You'll work with families who have children with catastrophic illnesses. You'll help them fill out paperwork, make phone calls, coordinate with medical offices. You'll see what these families face every day. I don't know anything about medical advocacy. Neither did I before Emma got sick. You'll learn. I met her eyes, and maybe you'll understand why I made the choice I did. My mother nodded slowly. When can I see the apartment? I'll have my property manager call you Monday with the application. If everything checks out, you can move in by the end of the month. Thank you, Patricia. I didn't respond to that. Instead, I said, I need to go. I'm meeting with a client family this afternoon. Their daughter has leukemia, and the insurance company denied the bone marrow transplant. Can you help them? I don't know yet, but I'll try. That's what I do now. My mother stood, straightening her suit jacket with trembling hands. She looked at my house, the mortgage I'd earned, the life I built from the ashes of the one she tried to destroy. Your father would be proud of you, she said quietly. I hope so, I said. But it doesn't matter anymore. Emma was proud of me. That's enough. I watched my mother walk to her car, an old sedan that had clearly seen better days. She drove away slowly, and I returned inside to my house filled with Emma's photos and the work that gave my lost meaning. My phone buzzed with another text, a former client sending a photo of her daughter's first day back at school after completing treatment. We couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for fighting for us. I saved the photo to my collection, hundreds of them now. Children who survived because someone advocated for them, because someone understood the system, because someone cared enough to fight. The company I'd left behind was gone, but the legacy I was building, the one Emma had inspired, would last far longer than any quarterly report. That evening, I sat in Emma's memorial garden, watching the sunset behind the house I owned and a life I'd chosen. I did the right thing, baby girl, I whispered. I hope you know that. The wind rustled through the flowers, and for a moment, I could almost hear her voice. The bravest person I know, Mom. I was learning to believe her. The chapel was filling up when I arrived. I'd driven 4 hours through the rain. Mom had died 3 days ago. Heart attack, sudden. I was still processing it. My sister Julia stood at the entrance, greeting mourners. When she saw me, her expression hardened. Back row for you, she said loudly enough that the family friends nearby turned to look. Adopted kids aren't real family. Front rows are for blood relatives only. I felt my face flush hot. 30 years old, and she could still make me feel like the outsider I'd been at 7 when Mom and Dad brought me home from foster care. Julia, I just want to. Back row, Amanda. I'm not arguing about this. She turned to greet Aunt Carol, dismissing me entirely. Mourners stared as I walked down the center aisle. I could hear whispers starting. My cousin sat in the third row, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. My brother Marcus was in the front row, his eyes fixed straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge what had just happened. I slid into the last row, next to the wall, holding my program with trembling hands. Mom's photo smiled at me from the front cover. She'd always called me her daughter. Never added the word adopted, just daughter. But apparently that hadn't mattered to Julia. The funeral director, Mr. Patterson, approached the podium. He was an older gentleman, professional and composed. He cleared his throat and began. We're gathered here today to celebrate the life of Margaret Ann Sullivan, beloved mother, sister, aunt, and friend. Julia stood up suddenly. Excuse me, I need to make a correction. She turned to face the congregation. My mother had 3 children, Marcus, myself, and our biological brother who passed away in childhood. Any other persons present claiming familial relation should be recognized only as former foster children she showed charity to. The chapel went completely silent. I wanted to disappear into the floor. Mr. Patterson's expression remained neutral, but I saw his jaw tighten. Mrs. Brennan, perhaps we could discuss. No discussion needed, Julia said. I just want everyone to understand the actual family structure. She sat down. Marcus stared at his hands. My aunt was crying quietly. Mr. Patterson adjusted his glasses and began again. As I was saying, Margaret Ann Sullivan touched many lives. I barely heard the rest of the service. The eulogies blurred together. Julia spoke about Mom's dedication to her real children. Marcus said nothing about me at all. When it was time for family to view the casket, I waited until everyone else had gone up before standing. Julia intercepted me at the aisle. Family only, she said quietly. I just want to say goodbye. You're not family. Mom took you in out of pity. That doesn't make you one of us. I looked at her, this woman I called sister for 23 years. Mom loved me. Mom felt obligated to you. There's a difference. Julia turned away. I returned to my seat in the back row and sat through the final prayers. When the service ended, Julia announced the family would gather at her house for the reception. She made direct eye contact with me when she added, family only. Others can pay respects and leave. I left the chapel and sat in my car for 20 minutes crying. Then I drove to my hotel. That evening, my phone rang. Mr. Patterson. Miss Sullivan? I apologize for calling so late. I have some documents that require your immediate attention. Documents? Regarding your mother's estate. Could you come to my office tomorrow morning at 9? I know the timing is difficult, but there are legal matters that can't wait. I agreed and hung up, confused. Mom's estate would go to Julia and Marcus. That's how these things worked. I was the charity case, as Julia had made abundantly clear. The next morning, I arrived at Patterson Funeral Home and Estates. Mr. Patterson led me to a small conference room where a woman in a navy suit was waiting. Miss Sullivan, this is Catherine Price. She's the attorney who handled your mother's estate planning. Catherine shook my hand. Her grip was firm, professional. I'm sorry for your loss, Amanda. Your mother spoke of you often. Thank you. I managed. I've asked you here because there are several matters that need your immediate attention. Catherine opened a folder. First, as executor of your mother's estate, you need to review these documents and begin the probate process. I stared at her. Executor? There must be a mistake. Julia would be. Your mother appointed you as executor 18 months ago when she updated her will. Catherine slid a document across the table. This is the official designation, witnessed and notarized. My hands shook as I read the words. Executor, Amanda Claire Sullivan. I'd never seen my full legal name written like that. Mom had given me her last name when the adoption was finalized. But why wouldn't she tell me? Catherine's expression softened. Your mother mentioned she wanted to avoid family conflict while she was alive. She knew this would upset your siblings. They're going to be furious. That's not your concern. Your responsibility is to execute your mother's wishes as she documented them. Catherine pulled out more papers. Now let's discuss the estate itself. The primary residence at 847 Maple Street is valued at approximately $650,000. Your mother also had investment accounts totaling just over $900,000, a life insurance policy for $300,000, and her business holdings. Business holdings? Your mother owned the property where her bookstore operated, as well as 2 other commercial buildings downtown. Those are valued collectively at about $2.3 million. She also had rental income from residential properties. I felt dizzy. I didn't know Mom had that much. She was a very shrewd investor. She started with the bookstore 30 years ago and quietly built a real estate portfolio. Catherine looked at me directly. Amanda, your mother's total estate is worth approximately $4.2 million. The number didn't seem real. As executor, you'll need to notify all beneficiaries, manage the estate through probate, and execute the distributions according to her will. Catherine pulled out another document. This is the will itself. Would you like me to summarize the major provisions? I nodded, unable to speak. Your mother left the family home to you outright. The investment accounts are divided with 60% to you, 20% each to Julia and Marcus. The commercial properties go entirely to you. The house, the businesses, but Julia and Marcus each receive financial bequests, as I mentioned, but your mother was very clear about her reasoning. Catherine flipped to a page marked with a sticky note. She wrote in her letter of instruction, and I quote, Amanda has shown true loyalty and love. Julia and Marcus has shown me what matters to them. And it isn't family connection. I leave the bulk of my estate to the daughter who chose to be my family, not the children who happened to be born into it. Tears spilled down my face. Catherine handed me a tissue box. There's more. Catherine continued gently. Your mother established a trust fund for any future children you might have. She wanted to ensure her grandchildren through you would be provided for. That trust is worth $500,000. She thought that far ahead. She told me you were the only one of her children who understood what family really meant. Catherine gathered the papers. You'll need to formally notify Julia and Marcus of the will's contents. As executor, that's your legal responsibility. I can be present for that meeting if you'd like. Yes, please. We scheduled it for the next day at Catherine's office. I called Julia and Marcus, telling them only that the attorney needed to meet with all of us regarding Mom's estate. Julia's tone was dismissive. Marcus's was neutral. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Julia arrived at Catherine's office dressed in expensive designer clothes, Marcus in his suit. They both looked surprised to see me sitting at the conference table with Catherine and Mr. Patterson. Why is she here? Julia asked. This is for actual family. Please sit down, Mrs. Brennan, Mr. Sullivan. Catherine's voice was professional but firm. I'm the attorney who handled your mother's estate. Amanda is here because she's the executor of the will. Julia laughed. That's ridiculous. I'm the eldest daughter. Nevertheless, your mother appointed Amanda. Catherine opened her folder. I'll read the relevant sections of the will. As Catherine read, Julia's face went from amused to confused to pale. Marcus leaned forward, his brow furrowed. This can't be right, Julia interrupted. The house is worth over $500,000. She's leaving it to her? Your mother left the house to Amanda, yes. You and Marcus each received $200,000 from the investment accounts. $200,000? While she gets everything else? Julia stood up. This is fraud. Mom would never do this. I assure you, the will is legally sound. I witnessed it myself, along with 2 other attorneys. Your mother was of sound mind and very clear about her intentions. Julia turned to me, her face red. You manipulated her. You convinced her to cut us out. I didn't even know about this, I said quietly. Liar. You spent the last few years poisoning her against us. Mrs. Brennan, Catherine said firmly, your mother updated this will 18 months ago. The document includes a letter explaining her reasoning. Would you like me to read it? Yes, Marcus said. His voice was tight. Catherine pulled out a handwritten letter in Mom's distinctive script. Your mother wrote, to Julia and Marcus, I am leaving the majority of my estate to Amanda because she proved what family means. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago, Amanda took time off work to drive me to treatments. She sat through every chemotherapy session. She called me every single day. Julia's face went white. Mom had cancer? You didn't know. Catherine looked up from the letter. She never told us, Marcus said quietly. According to her letter, she did tell you. She called each of you in March 2 years ago. Catherine continued reading. Julia told me she was too busy with her new house renovation to help. Marcus said he'd visit when his work schedule allowed but never came. Only Amanda showed up. Only Amanda cared more about my life than my money. The room was silent except for the sound of Julia's sharp breathing. There's more, Catherine said. I am leaving Amanda the house because she's the only one who ever treated it as a home rather than an asset. I'm leaving her my businesses because she understands that work should serve life, not the other way around. Julia and Marcus, I love you, but I no longer trust you with my legacy. Amanda earned this. You had every opportunity to show me what mattered to you. You chose to show me clearly. Julia grabbed her purse. I'm contesting this. No judge will allow an adopted child to steal a family inheritance. You're welcome to try, Catherine said calmly. But I should mention that your mother anticipated this. She included a no contest clause. If you challenge the will and lose, you forfeit your entire inheritance. Your $200,000 would go to charity. Julia's hand froze on her purse strap. Additionally, Catherine continued, your mother documented extensively. She kept records of every phone call, every text message, every time she asked for help. She has 2 years of evidence showing which child cared for her and which ones didn't. Marcus spoke up. I didn't know she was that sick. She said it was treatable. It was treatable. She's been in remission for 14 months, but she needed support during that time. Amanda provided it. You didn't. Catherine closed the folder. The estate is substantial. Amanda will inherit approximately $3.2 million in assets. You'll each receive $200,000. Your mother felt that was more than fair given your level of involvement in her life. This is because of the funeral, isn't it? Julia's voice shook. She saw what happened at the funeral somehow. Your mother died before the funeral, Catherine said. But she anticipated how you treat Amanda. In her letter, she wrote, I know Julia will try to exclude Amanda from family events. She's done it before. This is my final statement that Amanda is family. The most family of all my children. Julia walked out without another word. Marcus sat for a moment longer. I should have visited more, he said quietly. I should have been there. Yes, I said, you should have. He left. Catherine turned to me. Amanda, there's one more thing. Your mother left you a personal letter. I was instructed to give it to you after the will reading. She handed me an envelope. Inside was Mom's handwriting. My dearest Amanda, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably confused and overwhelmed. I chose you as executor and primary beneficiary because you chose to be my daughter every single day. Not because paperwork said so, but because you loved me. When I was sick and scared, you held my hand. You made me laugh. You reminded me why life was worth fighting for. Julia and Marcus are my children by birth, but you are my daughter by choice, both yours and mine. The world will tell you that blood matters most. I'm telling you that love matters most. You showed me more love than I ever dreamed possible. This inheritance isn't just money and property. It's my way of saying, you were always real family, the realest family I had. I love you forever, Mom. I sat in Catherine's office and cried for 20 minutes. Mr. Patterson brought me water. Catherine sat quietly, letting me process. What do I do now? I finally asked. You sign the executor documents. You begin probate. You take possession of your inheritance. Catherine smiled gently, and you live your life knowing your mother saw exactly who you were and loved you for it. 3 months later, the estate cleared probate. I moved into Mom's house. I kept the bookstore running. The commercial properties provided steady income. Julia never spoke to me again. Marcus sent a brief apology. I didn't respond. I set up a foundation in Mom's name, providing support for families dealing with cancer treatment. On the first anniversary of her death, I sat in her garden. The house was mine. The businesses were mine. But more than that, the love was mine. It always had been. Julia had been wrong about one thing. I was real family. Mom had made sure everyone knew it. The reception was perfect. The venue overlooked the harbor. The string lights created a warm glow, and 200 guests laughed and celebrated. My husband, Marcus, and I had spent 18 months planning every detail, saving every penny to make this day exactly what we wanted. Then my father stood up to give his toast. I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my daughter Sarah and her new husband, Marcus, Dad began, his voice carrying across the room. He had 3 glasses of champagne already. I could see it in his flushed face and hear it in his too loud voice. You know, planning a wedding is expensive, he continued. Very expensive. But when you're a father, you do what you have to do for your little girl. I paid for everything you see here tonight. Every detail. Because, well, let's be honest. Marcus's family couldn't afford this kind of celebration. The room went silent. 200 people stopped talking, stopped eating, stopped moving. I felt Marcus's hand tighten on mine under the table. They kept going, oblivious or uncaring. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Not everyone can be successful. But I'm glad I could give my daughter the wedding she deserves, even if it meant covering everything myself because the groom's side couldn't contribute. He raised his glass. To Sarah and Marcus. A few people awkwardly clinked glasses. Most just sat there, frozen, unsure where to look. I looked at Marcus's parents across the room. His mother's face was pale, his father's jaw clenched. They were both retired teachers, hardworking people who'd raised 3 incredible kids on modest incomes. They'd offered to help with the wedding, but we politely declined because Marcus and I wanted to pay for it ourselves. I looked at my mother, sitting next to Dad. She was staring at her plate, embarrassed, but saying nothing. Then I looked at Marcus, my husband of 3 hours, the man I loved more than anything. The ER nurse who worked doubles to save lives and came home exhausted but still made me laugh. The man who'd worked 2 jobs while earning his nursing degree. The man who'd never asked anyone for anything. His face showed hurt, humiliation, and anger. I stood up. The room's attention shifted to me. I walked to where the DJ was set up and took the microphone. "Thank you for that, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to correct something, for the record for everyone here." Dad's smile faltered. "Marcus and I paid for this wedding ourselves. Every single dollar. The venue, the food, the flowers, the music, the dress, all of it. We saved for 18 months. We worked extra hours. We made sacrifices. But we did it together, as partners, because that's how we wanted to start our marriage." I looked directly at my father. Dad contributed exactly $0 to this wedding, not because we didn't invite him to, but because we chose not to accept anyone's money. We wanted this to be ours. The silence was deafening. But what's more important than the money is this. Dad just publicly humiliated my husband and his family by suggesting they're poor and couldn't afford to contribute. He implied that Marcus needed to be rescued by my successful father. None of that is true. Marcus stood and joined me. I handed him the microphone. "My parents are teachers," Marcus said quietly. "They dedicated their lives to educating kids. They're not wealthy, but they're rich in every way that matters. They offered to help with the wedding, and we said no because Sarah and I are adults who wanted to handle this ourselves." He looked at my father. "I don't need your money. I never did. What I needed was for my wife's father to treat me with respect on our wedding day. You failed." Marcus handed the microphone back to me. "We're going to continue celebrating with everyone who's here to support our marriage," I said, "not to witness false claims or public humiliation. If you're here for the right reasons, please stay. If not, we understand." I returned the microphone to the DJ, and Marcus and I sat back down. For about 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then Marcus's parents stood up and walked over to us. His mother hugged me tightly. His father shook Marcus's hand, pride evident on his face. Then my maid of honor stood and raised her glass. "To Sarah and Marcus, to partnerships built on respect and truth." Half the room stood and echoed the toast. My father remained seated, his face red with anger, embarrassment, or both. Over the next hour, the reception continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. People kept approaching our table to quietly apologize for Dad's behavior, to praise us for speaking up, to tell Marcus's parents how much they respected them. But 40 people left early, family members from Dad's side who didn't want to be part of the awkwardness or who felt loyalty to him overrode their support for us. My Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda left without saying goodbye. My cousin Amanda stopped by our table first, whispering, "I'm sorry, but we have to go. You understand." We didn't, but we nodded anyway. My parents left at 10 o'clock, 2 hours before the reception was supposed to end. Mom approached me first. "Sarah, did you have to embarrass your father like that? In front of everyone? Did he have to lie about paying for my wedding? Did he have to insult Marcus's family? He'd been drinking. He didn't mean it the way it sounded. How many ways are there to interpret the groom's family is too poor?" She had no answer. "We're leaving. Your father is very upset. So is my husband. So am I. I hope you're happy with how this turned out." She left before I could respond. Despite everything, the rest of the reception was beautiful. The people who stayed were there for us. They danced, they celebrated, and they made speeches about love, partnership, and respect. Marcus and I had our first dance, cut the cake, and threw the bouquet. But there was a hollow space where my parents should have been. At midnight, as we were saying goodbye to the last guests, Marcus's mother pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," she said. "It took courage to do what you did, to stand up for your husband, for us, for the truth. I'm sorry you had to hear that. What he said. Don't apologize for him. He said what he said. You corrected it. That's all we can control, how we respond." After everyone left, Marcus and I stayed to help pack up our personal items. We were exhausted, emotionally drained, but also oddly peaceful. We'd stood up for ourselves. We told the truth. We'd started our marriage with integrity. We got back to our apartment at 1 in the morning. We decided against a honeymoon right away. We couldn't afford it after paying for the wedding, and our work schedules didn't align. We planned something for later. I was taking off my jewelry when there was a knock at the door. Marcus looked at me, confused. Who would be here at 1 in the morning? I opened the door. My father stood there. He looked terrible. His tuxedo was rumpled, his eyes red and swollen. He'd been crying. He was holding something in his hands, a small photo album. "Can I come in?" Marcus appeared behind me. "Sir, it's our wedding night. This isn't." "Please," Dad said. "I know I don't deserve it, but please." I let him in. He stood in our small living room, clutching the album like a lifeline. "I've been driving around for 3 hours," he said. "Couldn't go home. Couldn't face your mother. Just drove and thought about what I did." Neither Marcus nor I said anything. "I brought this." He held out the album. "I found it in the garage last week while looking for something else. Haven't opened it in years." I took it. Inside were photos from when I was little. Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Dad at my elementary school graduation. Dad helping me with a science project. Dad and me at father-daughter dances. "You were my whole world," he said, his voice breaking. "After your mother and I had you, everything I did was for you, to give you opportunities, to make sure you had more than I did growing up." "Dad, let me finish, please." He wiped his eyes. "I grew up poor, really poor. My father worked 3 jobs, and we still struggled. I swore that when I had kids, they'd never know that feeling. So I worked hard, built a business, made money. And somewhere along the way, I started thinking money was the measure of everything." He looked at Marcus. "When Sarah told me she was marrying you, I looked you up. Saw you were a nurse. Looked at average nurse salaries, looked at your parents' careers, and I made a judgment. I decided you weren't good enough because you didn't make enough." "Sir," Marcus started. "I was wrong, completely wrong. Tonight, when I stood up to give that toast, I convinced myself I was the hero, the generous father who'd given his daughter everything. I wanted people to see me as successful, as generous. I wanted credit. But you didn't pay for anything," I said quietly. "I know, and that's the worst part. I lied because I wanted people to think I had. Because in my mind, a good father pays for his daughter's wedding. A successful man can afford to. And when you two insisted on paying for it yourselves, I felt diminished somehow, like I'd failed." He sat down heavily on our couch. "So I lied, and in lying, I humiliated my daughter, my son-in-law, and his wonderful parents. I ruined your wedding reception. I put my ego ahead of your happiness. 40 people left because of what happened," I said. "I know. Your Uncle Robert called me, yelled at me for 20 minutes about what an embarrassment I am. He's not wrong." Marcus sat down across from Dad. "Why did you feel the need to put down my family? Even if you had paid, why say it that way?" Dad looked at his hands. "Because I'm insecure. Because I spent my whole life trying to prove I'm not the poor kid anymore. And I thought diminishing others would elevate me. It's inexcusable. Your parents are incredible people. They raised an incredible son. They did it with integrity and love. They don't need money to be successful. They already are." "They are," Marcus agreed. "I called them tonight," Dad said. "Around 11, to apologize." "Your father answered," Marcus. "Do you know what he said?" "What?" "He said, I don't need your apology. Your daughter and my son need your respect. If you can give them that, we'll have no problem. If you can't, stay away from them." Dad smiled sadly. A better man than me, by far. We sat in silence for a moment. "I can't undo tonight," Dad said finally. "I can't take back what I said in front of 200 people. I can't give you back the reception you deserved. But I can tell you that I'm sorry, deeply, truly sorry, and I can promise to do better." "What does better look like?" I asked. "It means respecting your choices, respecting Marcus, respecting his family, It means keeping my mouth shut about money and success and who can afford what. It means showing up with humility instead of ego. He stood up. It also means leaving you alone on your wedding night instead of making this all about me and my feelings. I'm sorry I came here. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did, and that you were right to correct me publicly. I deserved that and worse. He walked to the door, then turned back. Marcus, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but I'm asking anyway. Give me a chance to be a better father-in-law, a better man. I can't promise I'll get it right immediately. Old habits, old insecurities, they run deep, but I promise I'll try. Marcus looked at me, then back at Dad. Sir, I don't hold grudges, but I also don't tolerate disrespect. You disrespected my parents, my wife, and me tonight. If you want a relationship going forward, it starts with genuine change, not just apologies. I understand. And if we have kids someday, they're never going to hear you talk about money as a measure of worth or hear you put people down for their career choices. That's non-negotiable. Agreed, completely. After Dad left, Marcus and I sat together on the couch. That was unexpected, he said. Everything about today was unexpected. Do you think he meant it? The apology? I think he meant it tonight. Whether he'll mean it in a month, in a year, that's the question. Marcus pulled me close. We stood up for ourselves today, for us, for my parents. That matters more than anything else. 40 people left. 160 stayed, and they stayed because they support us, not because they wanted free food and an open bar. We found out who really cares. That's valuable information. He was right. The people who'd stayed were the ones who mattered. The ones who'd left had shown us where their priorities were. How's this for a wedding night? I said. Public humiliation, family drama, and a 2 a.m. visit from my father. Marcus laughed. Well, it's memorable. Our kids are going to love this story. Are they? Sure. The day Mom publicly fact-checked Grandpa at her own wedding. It's a classic. I smiled despite everything. Think we'll laugh about this eventually? I think we'll laugh about it tomorrow. Right now, though, I'm exhausted. We went to bed as the sun was starting to rise. Our wedding day was over. It hadn't been perfect. It had been messy, complicated, and painful in parts. But it had also been honest. We'd stood up for ourselves. We defended each other. We'd started our marriage with truth instead of comfortable lies. And maybe that was more valuable than a perfect reception. The photo album Dad had brought sat on our coffee table, evidence of a relationship that had been good once and might be good again if he did the work. We'd see. Time would tell if tonight's apology was real or just another performance. But regardless, Marcus and I had each other. We had the truth. We had the 160 people who'd stayed. And we had a marriage built on respect, partnership, and the courage to speak up when it mattered. Even if it meant correcting your own father in front of 200 wedding guests. The group text came while I was making dinner. Messages filled the family chat about Disney, only 6 weeks away. My daughter, Emma, was 7 and obsessed with Disney princesses. She'd been counting down the days. Then Mom's message appeared. Nicole, we need to talk about Emma and the trip. Call me when you can. My stomach dropped. I stepped into the hallway and dialed her number. Hi, honey, she answered. I'm glad you called. Your father and I have been discussing the Disney trip, and we're concerned about logistics. What kind of logistics? Well, Emma's wheelchair. The parks are huge. She's going to slow everyone down. We have the other grandkids to think about. They'll want to move quickly, see everything. We can't spend the whole week accommodating one person's limitations. I stood in the hallway, trying to process what I was hearing. You're saying Emma can't come because she uses a wheelchair? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe this particular trip isn't the best fit for her. Disney is exhausting even for typical kids. For Emma, with her cerebral palsy, all that heat, walking, and crowds, it would be miserable for her. We'd all be miserable trying to keep up. Keep up? Mom, Disney has accessibility services. The parks are completely wheelchair accessible. Emma would love it. Nicole, be realistic. The other kids will want to run from ride to ride. They're not going to want to wait while we navigate wheelchair ramps and accessible entrances. And what about the photos? We wanted nice family pictures. Having a wheelchair in every shot is going to make that difficult. The words hit me like a physical blow. You're worried about wheelchairs ruining your photos? Don't twist my words. I'm thinking about everyone's experience. Maybe you and Emma could do a mother-daughter trip another time, just the two of you. Then you could go at her pace, do the things she can handle. The things she can handle, I repeated slowly. You know what I mean, the trip is already booked. The rental house sleeps 12. We've made reservations. It's just easier if it's the 8 adults and the 5 ambulatory grandchildren. 13 is an awkward number anyway. So you're uninviting my daughter from the family vacation because her disability is inconvenient. Nicole, you're making this about something it's not. We love Emma. This is purely practical. Who else knows about this? Silence. Mom, who else agrees with you? Your father and I discussed it. Kevin thinks it makes sense logistically. Ashley wasn't sure, but she agreed the other kids should be the priority. This is a once-in-a-lifetime trip for them. And not for Emma? She's not worth a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Stop putting words in my mouth. Look, we've made our decision. You're welcome to come without her. I'm sure you could use the break. Being Emma's caregiver full-time must be exhausting. I hung up without saying goodbye. Emma rolled into the hallway in her wheelchair, concern on her face. Mommy, you look sad. I knelt down and hugged her. I'm okay, baby. Are we still going to see Mickey Mouse? My heart broke. She'd been talking about this trip for months. She had a countdown calendar on her wall. She'd been practicing her autograph book signatures. Yes, sweetheart. We're absolutely going to see Mickey Mouse. Just not with them. That night, after Emma went to bed, I opened my laptop. I booked Emma and me for the same week as the family trip. Different hotel, same parks. If they thought Emma couldn't keep up, I proved them wrong. I posted in an adaptive parenting group asking for Disney accessibility tips. The response was overwhelming. I learned about Disney's disability access service, accessible rides, and wheelchair-friendly restaurants. I booked character dining, reserved accessible viewing for fireworks, and planned every detail. I didn't tell my family. When Mom texted asking if I'd made peace with the decision, I replied, Emma and I have other plans that week. 3 days before the trip, my sister Ashley called. Nicole, I feel terrible. Tom and I want to join your trip instead. The kids keep asking about Emma, what you're doing. That's what family should be. By the next day, Kevin called too. Jen and I are switching to your trip. The boys won't stop asking about Emma. Can you send the hotel information? When Mom found out both siblings were switching, she called me, furious. You're sabotaging our vacation. I'm taking my daughter to Disney World. The family chose differently. That's not sabotage. That's consequence. July arrived hot and humid. Emma's excitement was contagious. She wore her Cinderella dress to the airport and clutched her autograph book the entire flight. We checked into our hotel, a beautiful resort with a lazy river pool and princess-themed rooms. Emma's eyes went wide when she saw the castle mural on the wall. This is the best day ever, and we haven't even seen Mickey yet. That afternoon, Ashley's family checked in, then Kevin's family. The kids ran to Emma immediately, hugging her and showing her their matching Mickey ear hats. My nephew Tyler, who was 9, knelt by Emma's wheelchair. Aunt Nicole, I made Emma a surprise. He pulled out a decorated bag with Emma's name on it. Inside were trading pins, a light-up Mickey wand, and a handmade card that said, Best cousin ever. Emma cried happy tears. That first evening, we had dinner at our hotel restaurant. The kids sat together, making plans for the parks. Emma was right in the middle, laughing, talking, included, and celebrated. My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. Your mother and I arrived at the rental house. It's very quiet. I didn't respond. Day 1 at Magic Kingdom was pure magic. Emma's face when she saw Cinderella's castle made every bit of planning worth it. The disability access service meant we didn't spend hours in lines. Emma could rest between rides without feeling like she was holding everyone back. When we met Cinderella, the princess knelt down to Emma's eye level. I heard there was a special princess visiting today, she said. Emma glowed. By day 2, something wonderful was happening. Other families at the parks kept approaching us. They'd see Emma in her decorated wheelchair, surrounded by cousins who clearly adored her, and they'd smile. One mother stopped me in line for Peter Pan. I have a daughter with CP too. Seeing your family all together like this, the way those kids include her, it's beautiful. My family doesn't get it. I have this stranger in the middle of Disney World. By day 3, we developed a reputation. The cast members at our hotel started calling us the real family. They'd wave to Emma by name. One cast member told me she'd worked at Disney for 15 years, and our family's dynamic was the most heartwarming thing she'd ever seen. That night, we had reservations at Be Our Guest restaurant. The kids were exhausted but happy. Emma had met every princess she'd wanted to meet. She had a pin collection that covered her wheelchair bag. She'd watched the fireworks from a special accessible viewing area where she could see perfectly. We were walking back to the hotel, tired and happy, when my phone rang, Dad's number. It was close to midnight. I almost didn't answer. Nicole? Dad's voice was rough. Are you still awake? We just got back to the hotel. What's wrong? Can I come see you? I'm in the parking lot. My stomach dropped. You're here? At our hotel? I drove over from the rental house. I need to talk to you. 10 minutes later, Dad appeared in the hotel lobby. He looked terrible, exhausted, like he'd been crying. Ashley and Kevin saw him and joined me, forming a protective wall. Dad, Kevin said, what are you doing here? Dad looked at the three of us, his adult children united. I came to apologize, and to ask if I can see Emma. Why? I asked. He pulled something out of his jacket pocket. It was a photo album, the old kind, with printed pictures. I spent the last 3 days alone in that rental house. Your mother is furious. She's barely speaking to me. She says I should be supporting her decision, not questioning it. But I kept thinking about Emma, about what we did. He opened the album. It was full of photos of Emma as a baby, as a toddler. Dad holding her. Dad pushing her on a swing. Dad laughing as she smashed cake on his face at her first birthday. I was looking through old photos, trying to understand when I stopped seeing her as my granddaughter and started seeing her as an inconvenience. These pictures, she was so small, and I loved her so completely. His voice broke. Then I found this. He pointed to a photo from 2 years ago, Emma in her wheelchair at the park, surrounded by her cousins. Everyone was laughing. It was a perfect moment. The wheelchair isn't what I see in this photo, Dad said. I see a happy kid, a loved kid, a kid who belongs. And I realized we took that away from her. We told her she doesn't belong because she can't walk. What kind of grandparents do that? Ashley stepped forward. Dad, why didn't you say this before the trip? I was weak. Your mother was so convinced, and Kevin and I went along with it because it was easier than arguing. But sitting in that empty rental house these past 3 days, knowing you were all here together, knowing Emma was having the time of her life without us, it broke something in me. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face. Can I see her? Can I tell her I'm sorry? She's asleep, I said. It's past midnight. Tomorrow then? I'll come back tomorrow. I'll do whatever you want. I'll apologize 1,000 times. I'll push her wheelchair through every park. I just need her to know that I love her, that I was wrong. Kevin spoke up. What about Mom? Your mother and I have a lot to discuss when I get back. She's angry that I came here. She thinks I'm betraying her. But I can't keep pretending that what we did was okay. Emma is our granddaughter. She deserves better than grandparents who exclude her. We stood in the hotel lobby, the 5 of us. Through the windows, I could see the pool lights reflecting off the water. Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, having had the best 3 days of her young life. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You can join us tomorrow, Magic Kingdom, 9 in the morning. You'll meet us at the castle. And Dad, you're going to push Emma's wheelchair all day. You're going to see exactly how well she keeps up, how the accessibility works, how much joy she brings to every moment. Yes, he said immediately. Yes, thank you. And when we get home, you're going to have a serious conversation with Mom. Because if she can't accept Emma as she is, then she's choosing to lose all of us. Dad nodded, wiping his face. I know, I will. I promise. He left with the photo album still in his hands. Ashley looked at me. Do you think he'll actually follow through? I don't know, but I gave him the chance. What he does with it is up to him. The next morning, Dad was waiting at the castle at 8:50. He brought Emma a special Minnie Mouse wheelchair cover he'd somehow found that morning. When Emma saw him, she squealed with delight. Grandpa, you came to Disney. He knelt down and hugged her tight. I'm so sorry I almost missed this, sweetheart. I was being very silly. It's okay, Grandpa. Want to see my pin collection? He spent the entire day with us. He pushed Emma's wheelchair through the parks. He saw how the accessibility services worked seamlessly. He watched strangers smile at Emma's joy. He saw his other grandchildren naturally include her in everything. At lunch, he pulled me aside. I was so wrong about everything. She's having the time of her life. And the wheelchair, It's not a burden. It's just a tool, like glasses or a hearing aid. I don't know why I couldn't see that before. Because Mom convinced you it would be hard, and you believed her instead of trusting Emma. I know. I'm ashamed. That evening, we gathered for the fireworks. Dad pushed Emma to the accessible viewing area, the best view in the entire park. When the show started, Emma's face lit up with wonder. Dad was crying. Thank you for giving me this, for letting me see what I almost threw away. Don't thank me, Dad. Thank Emma. She's the one who deserves this moment. Later that night, after Dad left to drive back to the rental house, Ashley, Kevin, and I sat by the pool while the kids swam. Do you think Mom will ever get it? Ashley asked. I honestly don't know, I said. But Emma will always know that she's loved. That's what matters. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. I told your mother I'm checking out of the rental house early. I'm staying through the rest of the week at a hotel near yours. If you'll have me, I want to spend every remaining day with Emma. She deserves a grandpa who shows up. I showed the text to my siblings. Kevin smiled. That's a start. Yeah, I agreed. It's a start. The rest of the week was magical. Dad joined us every day. He learned about accessibility. He apologized repeatedly to Emma, who forgave him instantly because that's who she is. He took 1,000 photos. Emma with Mickey, Emma on rides, Emma with her cousins. Wheelchairs in every single shot. On our last day, as we were packing to leave, Emma hugged me tight. This was the best vacation ever, Mommy. Yeah, baby, it really was. Because she kept up just fine. She more than kept up. She led the way, showing everyone that disability doesn't diminish joy. It doesn't diminish belonging. It doesn't diminish love. The birthday party was held at my father's flagship restaurant, Morrison's Italian Kitchen. My daughter, Lily, was turning 10. Despite everything, despite years of minimal contact and maximum judgment, I'd accepted his offer to host her party. He'd insisted. Family should celebrate together. He'd said on the phone, I'll take care of everything. I should have known better. The restaurant's private dining room was decorated with balloons and streamers. My father's new wife, Denise, was there with her 2 children from a previous marriage, both around Lily's age. My father's siblings, a few cousins, some family friends, about 20 people total. The food was excellent, as expected. My father might be many things, but his restaurant served good Italian food. That's why Morrison's Italian Kitchen had 5 locations across 2 states and generated $8 million annually. Or at least that's what the business generated now, under new ownership. Gift time came after cake. Denise's children went first, opening their presents in front of everyone like a performance. Her son opened a new gaming console, the latest model, probably $500. The box was enormous, professionally wrapped. Her daughter got a designer handbag that I recognized from a boutique downtown, at least $300. Both children squealed with appropriate delight, hugging their grandfather and posing for photos. Lily's turn, my father announced, wheeling out a large cart with several wrapped boxes stacked on it. The boxes were elaborately wrapped in gold paper with white ribbons, looking expensive and thoughtful. I got my granddaughter something very special this year. Lily looked at me nervously. She had learned to be cautious around her grandfather, had picked up on the subtle ways he dismissed us, the jokes that weren't quite jokes, the comments that stung. But she was 10, and the boxes looked promising. Maybe this time would be different. She opened the first one carefully, trying not to tear the pretty paper. Inside was an empty pizza box. Morrison's logo printed on top, the cardboard clean but clearly used. Nothing inside, not even crumbs. Lily stared at it, confused. Is there something underneath? Keep going, my father said, his smile widening. There's more. The second box held empty pasta containers, the kind the restaurant used for takeout orders, the clear plastic ones with Morrison's logo on the lid. Clean, but obviously empty. She opened each one, checking. Nothing. The third box was filled with empty bread baskets, the wicker kind from the restaurant tables, and sauce cups with dried remnants around the rims. Lily looked up at me, her confusion turning to her as she realized this wasn't a joke with a punchline coming. This was the joke. It's a joke, sweetie, my father said loudly. You need to practice being hungry. Poor kids stay hungry, right? Your mom can't afford to feed you properly on her little salary, so I thought I'd help you get used to it. The room erupted in laughter. My father's brother nearly choked on his wine. A cousin slapped the table. Denise covered her mouth, giggling. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the empty containers, at the laughing adults, at me. I don't understand, she whispered. Your mom made choices, my father continued, enjoying his audience. Left the family. Decided to make it on her own. Proud and foolish. Now look where it got her. Struggling. Can barely afford that apartment you live in. I'm teaching you early. When you come from nothing, you stay nothing. More laughter. Someone made a joke about food banks. Another person mentioned welfare. I'd been sitting quietly, watching this performance. I'd known something was coming. My father couldn't resist humiliating me, especially in front of family. It's who he was. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. Actually, Dad, I'm glad you brought up finances and business success. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. About what? How you need money. I'm not a bank, Catherine. No, you're not a bank. You're an employee, my employee. The laughter stopped abruptly. The room went from boisterous to silent in seconds. What are you talking about? I opened the folder and pulled out documents, spreading them across the table so everyone could see. Morrison's Italian Kitchen. 5 locations across Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Annual revenue approximately $8 million, but struggling with $600,000 in accumulated debt, declining customer numbers by 15% year over year, poor cost management, and vendor contracts that were bleeding money. 8 months ago, you needed capital desperately to avoid bankruptcy. The bank was threatening to call your business loans. My father's face went from confused to red. That's private business information. How do you? It's my business information. You sold 65% of Morrison's Italian Kitchen to an investment firm called Cascade Holdings. Do you remember signing the papers? Meeting with your attorney and banker? Reviewing multiple offers from potential investors? I took on investors, partners, business partners. I'm still in charge of my restaurants. You're the general manager, an employee. I am the owner. I slid the core documents across the table. Cascade Holdings LLC is my company. I bought your restaurants 8 months ago for $3.2 million. My father snatched the papers with shaking hands. Certificate of ownership showing Cascade Holdings owning 65% of Morrison's Italian Kitchen. Incorporated transfer documents with his signature clearly visible at the bottom. Articles of incorporation listing Catherine Morrison as principal and managing member of Cascade Holdings LLC. Bank records showing a wire transfer of $3,200,000 from Cascade Holdings to David Morrison. This can't be real. It's very real. Your attorney handled the sale. You signed everything. You just never asked who was buying. Denise grabbed the documents from him. David, you sold the restaurants. You told me you owned them outright. I do own them. I built them. You own 35%. I corrected. You sold majority control to raise capital. All transactions were legal and documented. You met with investors through your banker, reviewed offers, accepted mine. The fact that you didn't bother to learn who was behind Cascade Holdings isn't my problem. My father's brother leaned over to look at the papers. Holy shit, David. Your daughter owns your business? I own 65% of a restaurant chain that was failing under mismanagement. The board of directors reports to me. Major decisions require my approval. Dad, here is salaried management. I pulled out another document. Your employment contract. Signed 8 months ago. $180,000 annually. Standard benefits. Employment at will. The room was silent now. All the relatives who'd been laughing watched my father process this information. This is still my restaurant, he said weakly. My name's on the door. The trademark for Morrison's Italian Kitchen is owned by Cascade Holdings, the parent company. My company. The recipes, the branding, the locations, all of it. You're an employee who happens to have the same last name as the business. I turned to Lily, who was watching with wide eyes. Sweetie, why don't you go with Aunt Mary to the main dining room and order whatever dessert you want, the real kind, with actual food in it? My sister-in-law, who'd always been kind to us, quickly ushered Lily out. I waited until they were gone before continuing. Let's talk about why I'm telling you this now, Dad. 8 months ago, when I bought majority control, I planned to stay silent. Let you keep running things, just provide oversight. Fix the financials quietly. But tonight you gave my daughter empty food containers and told her to practice being hungry. You humiliated a 10-year-old child to make yourself feel superior. It was a joke. It was cruel. Just like you've always been cruel about my choices. I left home at 18. You told me I'd fail. I built a career in private equity. You said I was wasting my time. I now manage a $200 million investment fund. You assumed I was poor. My father's face had gone from red to pale. The truth is, Dad, I've been successful for years. When your restaurant started failing, when you needed investors, I saw an opportunity, not for revenge, but for business. I paid fair market value for a controlling stake in an underperforming asset. You're my daughter, you should have told me. You're my father. You should have asked about my life at some point in the last 12 years instead of assuming I was struggling. Denise stood up. David, we need to talk, privately. Sit down, I said calmly. This is a business discussion. It concerns everyone here who's been enjoying Dad's supposed success. I pulled out another folder. Performance review. As general manager, Dad's decisions have cost the business approximately $200,000 annually in unnecessary overhead and poor vendor contracts. Customer satisfaction scores have declined 15% over 3 years. 2 locations are barely profitable. You've been reviewing my work? I'm the owner. It's my job. And here's what I've found. You're not very good at running restaurants. You're good at cooking. Good at front-of-house charm. Terrible at actual management. My uncle spoke up. Catherine, this is harsh. He's your father. He just gave my daughter empty food containers and made her cry. I'm being professional. I could be much harsher. I closed the folder. Here's what happens next. Monday morning, we have a meeting, you, me, and an HR representative. We'll discuss your future with the company. Option 1. You stay as general manager with significantly reduced authority and heavy oversight. Option 2. You resign, take a generous severance package, and keep your 35% ownership stake as a passive investor. You can't fire me. I'm the majority owner. I can restructure any position. You're employed at will. I have documented performance issues. I absolutely can fire you. I'm being kind by offering resignation as an option. This is my business, my legacy. Your legacy is 5 restaurants that were failing until I bought them. Your name is on the door, but I own the door. I stood up. Think about your options. The meeting is at 9 Monday morning. I walked out to find Lily in the main dining room with my sister-in-law, eating a piece of chocolate cake that actually had substance. Can we go home, Mom? Yes, sweetheart. And we're not coming back here for family events. In the car, Lily was quiet for several minutes before asking, Did you really buy Grandpa's restaurants? Yes. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because it was business, not personal. But tonight made it personal. He was cruel to you. That's not acceptable. Are you going to fire him? I'm going to give him options. What he chooses is up to him. Monday's meeting was predictably difficult. My father arrived with Denise and an attitude of defiance. He'd spent the weekend convincing himself I was bluffing. The HR representative, a professional I'd hired from outside the company, laid out everything: performance documentation, financial analysis, market comparisons showing other restaurant groups with better metrics. These restaurants could be generating $10 million annually with proper management, she concluded. They're underperforming by 25%. My father tried to argue. Tried to blame the economy, competition, changing demographics. I let him talk himself out. Your choice, I finally said. Stay with oversight and performance requirements or resign with severance. You're doing this because of empty pizza boxes. I'm doing this because you've been mismanaging a business I own. The pizza boxes just made me stop avoiding the decision. He chose resignation. Pride wouldn't let him accept oversight. The severance was generous, $100,000, and he kept his 35% ownership stake. As a passive shareholder, he'd receive dividend distributions but have no operational authority. I hired a professional restaurant manager with 20 years of experience. She implemented changes immediately, updated the menu, improved cost controls, enhanced marketing, trained staff properly. 6 months later, revenue was up 30%. Customer satisfaction scores increased. 2 of the struggling locations became profitable. I opened a 3rd location in a new market. My father received his first dividend check as a passive shareholder, $80,000 for 6 months. More than he contributed to the business in the entire previous year. He called me. The restaurants are doing well. Yes, professional management helps. I saw the new menu. It's good. Different but good. The new GM knows what she's doing. Silence on the line. Then, I was wrong about the empty boxes. About a lot of things. Yes, you were. Can I apologize to Lily? You can send a letter. If she wants to see you after that, it'll be her choice. He sent the letter. Lily read it, thought about it, and decided she wanted nothing to do with her grandfather. She was old enough to make that choice. Denise divorced my father 14 months after the party. Turns out she married him for his success and status. When he became an employee with dividend income instead of a restaurant owner with authority, she lost interest. My father moved to a smaller house. Lived comfortably on his dividend income and severance, but not lavishly. Watched from the sidelines as I expanded Morrison's Italian kitchen to 8 locations across 3 states. His legacy became that his daughter built what he couldn't maintain. 2 years after the birthday party, Lily and I were at one of the newer Morrison's locations. A family at the next table was celebrating a birthday. The father was making the toast about how proud he was of his daughter's achievements. Lily watched them, then looked at me. Do you think Grandpa understands now? Understands what? That the empty boxes were never about me being poor. They were about him feeling small. That's very wise. You taught me that. You showed me that when people try to make you feel small, sometimes you just show them how big you actually are. I kept one of those empty pizza boxes from the party. It sits on a shelf in my office at Cascade Holdings, between a photo of Lily and a framed Forbes article about successful women in private equity. People ask why I keep an empty pizza box in such a prominent place. I tell them it's a reminder that empty gestures reveal more about the person giving them than the person receiving them. My father gave Lily empty containers and told her to practice being hungry. I gave him a business structure where he practiced being humble. Both were lessons. Only one of us meant ours kindly.